Welcome back and welcome to another movie reviews video. I make movie reviews here on this channel every Sunday. They are always spoiler free and I leave timestamps in the description box below in case there is a particular movie you want to hear my thoughts on. I will also leave last week's movie reviews linked up here in case there is something in there that you are considering going to see in cinemas this week. And last week I think I had quite a few movies to talk about. This week I have 3 movies to talk about. One of them is a newer release, one of them is a classic film that I was able to see at the cinema, and one of them is a rewatch for me, but may not be something that you have already seen. So the first movie I saw in cinemas this week was Jojo Rabbit. I'd been wanting to try and see this one for a while. It came out while I was away, and so I've been trying to find a time that worked well for me. I ended up seeing it in a gap that I had on Thursday, so that was cool. I was, I think, a little bit affected by the hype of this movie. It's been really hyped as being so amazing and like one of the films of the year, and it's been so heavily trailered as well. I've seen so many trailers for it, and obviously it had a very like steady release. So it was released in New York and LA, and then it was released in some other places, and then it was released in indie cinemas, and then finally it came to mainstream cinemas where I was able to see it. But yeah, I think because of all that hype, I went in with like really high expectations, and it was a good film. There was some funny bits, there were some serious bits, there were some sad bits, so it had kind of a good mix of all the feelings. You know, if it was a book, I would be like, oh yeah, this had a bit of everything, but I think because it had been so hyped, I was just expecting it to kind of blow me away, and it didn't. I thought that Scarlett Johansson was amazing in this. Sam Rockwell and Rebel Wilson were interesting choices. I feel like, I don't know if I feel like they were kind of playing themselves a little bit with a German accent, but the younger people in this film I thought were really good. The little boy who's the main character, Jojo, his on-screen presence was just fantastic, and his kind of like the way he swung from the comedy moments to the more serious moments to the sadder moments to moments where he was questioning his identity, I just thought was fantastic. So yeah, so it's a good film. Whether I say to you to rush out and see it in the cinema, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to be one of these that ends up with a lot of Oscar nominations, just because of the way it's been pushed and the way it's been marketed, and Sam Rockwell's attached to it. It seems that when he's attached to something, it gets an Oscar nomination. It's not my favourite film of his of the year. So if you're wanting to see it on the big screens so you can kind of like chime in on when those Oscar nominations come out, then by all means go ahead. But I wouldn't say, oh yes, this is worthy of the one film that you're going to see in cinemas this week, or this is worthy of the one film that you're going to see in cinemas this month. If you prefer to wait for your films to come to streaming, then why not? Go for it. I don't think that it loses anything by being on a smaller screen than being on the big screen. And it was an okay film. It had some good parts, but I wasn't blown away by it. I feel quite conflicted because I was expecting to love it. Then the second film I saw in cinemas this week was The Godfather Part 2. They were showing this on the big screen, and it was fantastic to be able to see it on the big screen. We are making our way through the IMDb top 100 movies as of January this year. Obviously, I know it's a list that changes, and so Godfather 1 and 2 are numbers 2 and 3 on the list as of January this year, respectively. And so we watched the DVD of Godfather 1 before going to see Godfather 2 in the cinema, and it's one of those that I'm really glad that we watched it on the big screen, because it's a 3.5-hour film with an intermission. If I had been sat on my sofa watching it at home, I feel like I might have got a little bit wiggly and a little bit like, okay, I'm gonna go off and load the dishwasher while this is carrying on. I feel like whilst it is longer than Godfather 1, it didn't feel as long because of the fact that we have these two parallel storylines. We have the Michael Corleone story and we have the Vito Corleone story, and we've flip back and forth between the two of those. We flip from modern day in the film, to historical Sicily, which was cool, and then historical New York. I want to say Bronx. Was it Bronx? Was it Queens? Oh, I feel like I should know this. Yeah, we flip back and forth between those two, and so that kept my attention a little bit more than Godfather 1 did, because Godfather 1 was just the one storyline for 3 hours. And so I feel like even though it's slightly longer, it didn't feel as long as Godfather 1. But yeah, I am one of these people that until last week I had not seen either of these films, and I'm glad that I now have, because I understand all sorts of references to them. Obviously lots of references in You've Got Mail, lots of references in Gilmore Girls. Those are two of my favourite things to watch, so I feel like I get those references now, which is nice. Definitely, if you have the opportunity to see some of the classics that I've been able to see this year on the big screen, go for it. That was, you know, the way they were originally intended to be seen, and yeah, seeing this one on the big screen was really cool. And yeah, it was a needed intermission to get up and kind of stretch your legs for a minute, because it is a long film. But yeah, like that, you've probably already seen it, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed 2 more than 1, I think, just because it had those 2 storylines. And then the third film I saw in cinemas this week was a rewatch for me. I just felt like I needed to go and see this film again, and I went to see Last Christmas again. Now, this is receiving some criticism for being marketed as a rom-com, as a romantic comedy, and the fact people are like, well, it's not a romance, that's not what the story is about. But I kind of had that in my mind going in to watch it for a second time. So there definitely is romance in this film. There is some romance for Emilia Clarke, our main character, and there is some romance for some secondary characters, and therefore I can see why it has been marketed as a rom-com. There's comedy as well, obviously. Whilst it's not a boy meets girl, they get together, get married and live happily ever after film, that's not giving away any spoilers, the trailer kind of makes that quite clear. It's still a romantic comedy. There's a lot of romantic elements to it, and especially for some of those side characters. Our main character's sister, Marta, has some romantic moments. Our main character's boss, Santa, has some romantic moments. There's talk of the romance between her parents. And then, yeah, Emilia Clarke, or Kate, does get some romance in this film. So I kind of had that hat on whilst watching it again. But this is more of your Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life type of movie. It's one of those where, you know, our main character learns a little bit something. Our main character grows and develops. And I love films like that. And I love, you know, Muppets Christmas Carol is, you know, it switches for my favourite Christmas film between like that and Elf and Love Actually and It's a Wonderful Life. But yeah, all of those films have people kind of like growing and changing and bettering themselves at Christmas time because it's Christmas. And yeah, there are definitely some romantic moments in this one. I also, as I mentioned previously, loved this film for the scenes of London at night time, at Christmas time, all the Christmas lights, all the kind of like bustling, festive atmosphere. But yeah, I was definitely watching it with that kind of like hat on for the second time, looking for the romance, looking for those romantic moments. And there are also those moments that go, yeah, okay, it's okay for you to be alone and it's okay for you to be independent. And it's also okay for you to still need those family ties, and it's okay to want those family ties. And again, I think that's an important message in a film as well. This film, the second time, still made me cry a little bit. It made me think a little bit, and I would say that I enjoyed it just as much the second time as I did the first time, even though I was watching it with a slightly more analytical hat on. Again, there were moments where I was the only one that laughed, and there were moments where the rest of the cinema laughed and I didn't. So there are definitely some moments in there that are British humour and some moments in there that are other humour. And so, yeah, again, this is one of those where if you want to, you know, use your cinema going time to go and see a feel-good Christmas movie this week, this month, then yes, I recommend this one. If you are the type of person that, you know, a rom-com isn't top of your to watch list and you want to use your cinema going time to go and see something else, then this doesn't lose anything for not being on the big screen. I know I said last week that, you know, I loved seeing the scenes of London and they were perfect on the big screen, but this is definitely one that I can see myself sitting on the sofa and watching at home next Christmas. So yeah, if you are not the type of person who, like me, kind of needs a Christmas rom-com at this time of year, then maybe give this one a miss and wait till it's streaming. But I loved it. I really, really recommend it. I, you know, seen it for a second time. There may be another occasion where I go to see it because I just love a Christmas movie, even if I do come out the cinema and go, why is everyone talking in American accents? Why is everyone not British like they are on the screen? I get very confused when I watch films that are predominantly British voices and then I exit my cinema screen. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not in the UK right now. That's right. It takes me a minute. It's funny how it must be like a muscle memory in the ears. But yeah, I think I've probably talked about that one enough now. Thank you so much for watching if you have made it to this point. As always, if there is a particular movie you would like me to go and watch and share my thoughts on with you here, I'm happy to do that, so leave me a comment letting me know if there's a particular movie you want me to review here. If you have any thoughts on the romance of Last Christmas, if you have seen it already as well, please let me know in comments. I have only heard people kind of like saying, oh, it's been mislabeled so far, which I really disagree with. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I will be back with more bookish content and more Disney content for you in the week. So make sure you are subscribed so that lands in your subscription feed. And I will be back with more movie reviews for you next weekend, including obviously my review of Frozen 2 because that comes out on Thursday. So excited for that. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week.